Yes, Madam Chairman.
Okay. So 1.4, we're reconvening into open session. No action was taken in closed session, so there's nothing to report out. So we're at 2.0, consider approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Did we open up the meeting? Sarah, did we open up the meeting and do roll call?
Yeah, it was actually on the agenda. The roll call was on the beginning of the agenda in closed session. I'm happy to do it. It's just the way the agenda was written. It was taken. The roll call was in closed session.
Is there anything that should be moved or tabled?
When in terms, I'm not aware of any issues with the consent agenda. The consent agenda is not the agenda for the meeting as a whole. Again, that was part of the agenda in closed session.
I apologize.
Oh, no problem.
So do we need to approve the agenda before moving to it, or we just deciding to make sure we do it correctly?
Again, we can go back and do that. It was just, that was at the beginning of the closed session.
I don't think there's any kind of violation. I think we can just continue on, and then on 4.3 and 4.4, when we get to it, then that's when we'll. But I mean,
Sarah, just to be safe, you probably want to go ahead and go back and do approval of the agenda as a whole.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to back up. To 1.0, and we can just do the roll call. So if you could just make sure when it's your turn that we can hear you. Ms. Ariano?
here.
Sarah Turner, present. Mr. Patel?
Present.
Mr. Sandoval?
Here.
Ms. Hardy Saldana?
Here.
Okay. So 1.1 is approval of board agenda for tonight. I know there had been some public interest that we want to get some more information before acting on 4.3 and 4.4. So I don't know if someone wants to move to amend the agenda, or if we just want to table those items when we get there.
Madam President, I motion to table 4.2 and I believe 4.3, correct?
4.3 and 4.4.
Sorry, 4.3, 4.4.
Okay, so right now, it's a motion to adopt the agenda with the amendment of tabling 4.3 and 4.4. So Mr. Patel has made a motion. Do I have a second?
I, Amparo Jauregui, second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, passes 5-0. Thank you, my people. Did we want to go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance for open session?
Yes, Madam President.
Me too. Okay, can you just stand up where you are? All right, stand up. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I feel more official now. So then we've had closed session. We've come back. As I mentioned, there were no action was taken during closed session, and we have approved the agenda for today with tabling 4.3 and 4.4. Does everybody else agree that's where we are?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The next item is 3.1, reports from district organizations, councils, or committees. Jill Lutz asked me to read a letter from her into the minutes, so I'm going to do that at this time. She also did send it to the public comment email address. It's really not public comment in terms of it's her report as SRTA president. So again, this is the letter from Miss Jill Lutz. We are all wishing we could return to our classrooms and our students, but on the whole, distance learning is going okay. There have been Google Meets in all classes all over the district, JoJo or Mind Connections with parents, Google Classroom assignments posted weekly, even virtual field trips with the students. Our students have borrowed books from libraries all across California, the United States, and even from countries around the world. Teachers have taken crash courses on remote learning platforms to implement the strategies, resources, and technologies to reach and teach our students. This time of transition from on-site to online learning has been demanding, but the teachers throughout the district have risen to the challenge. The executive board has been especially privileged to hear some amazing stories of what's happening in our distance learning classrooms. Even more fun has been the sharing of links and ideas among teachers as we all look forward to better ways to connect to our students and support their learning. We can all tell stories about how excited our students are to connect with us and their classmates on Google Meet. Stories about how some students can't sleep the night before because they're too excited about seeing their friends, albeit remotely. The younger ones dressing up to look especially nice for their teachers, and the overwhelming need of all students to share with their teachers and classmates what's been going on in their lives during the shelter in place. All of us have some apprehension about what the next school year will bring. We hope to work in partnership with the administration as the plan for the new world in education unfolds. We have learned a great deal about what works and what doesn't with distance learning. I think too, we have all learned how critical a teacher is in students' lives and learning. Those of us who think that someday teachers could be replaced by avatars, as past superintendents in this district have believed, have been most assuredly proven wrong during these last 5 weeks. Finally, we are eager to hear what the plans will be for wrapping up the school year. Most of the desks in our classrooms have personal items of the students, and the rooms have not been prepared by teachers for ending the school year. Sorry guys, my app just closed, so give me a minute. We look forward to continuing to work with the district in negotiations. Our anticipated timeframe will be definitely changed, but we can continue to work on the contract through the summer and if necessary, the fall. We continue to appreciate Melissa and her staff for working so closely with and supporting teachers during this stressful time, and acknowledging all the district employees for everything you are doing to uphold and promote student learning. Respectfully submitted, Jill Lutz, President, SRTA. Okay. At this time, are we aware of any CSEA communications that need to be read out?
This is Nicole. There are no other public comments at this time.
Thank you. So I'm going to go on to 3.2, reports from school principals, directors, department staff, chief business officer. Tim, if either you or Melissa could indicate to people that it's their turn to speak.
Sure, I can do that. So, we'll go ahead and start with Victor Sandoval.
Good afternoon. Hey,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
So in the maintenance, operations, and transportation department, we have brought back some employees, key employees, in order to do essential duties. We have currently the custodial staff on a as-needed basis. We do have the ground staff, and we do have some maintenance staff showing up to take care of the essential duties that we have currently pending. Other than that, everything's been kind of at a lull. We continue to complete the construction and the installation of the 3 new portables over at Santa Rita and the electrical distribution over at the transportation yard.
Thank you, Victor. Rosa? Ms. Samudio, are you there? Okay, Nadine,
I was on mute. Sorry. Can you hear me now? I was talking to myself.
go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you. So some of the updates in regards to my department, we continue to do our normal activities, which is, continuing to make payments, processing payroll, and pretty much everything is been going smooth. I do foresee a lot of work in the business department going forward, so I do want to give you an update in regards to the information that I'm getting in regards to our finances. So I do want to give you some update in regards to what's going on, what changes are happening in regards to COVID-19. So I'll start at the district level, and then I'll talk a little bit more at the state level. So here at the district level, some of the savings that we're going to see through the end of the fiscal year is pretty much savings on utilities such as electricity, water. We also might see some savings on gasoline. As you know, transportation, it's not working right now to transport students. So we're going to see some savings on that. Some savings also on professional development, on conference and travel, and also on substitute teachers and on hourly paid certificated employees. So I'm going to have a more report and more accurate numbers at the end of the year. But this is pretty much what's going on right now at the district level. Then I'm going to talk about some of the revenue reductions for this fiscal year that we are seeing as well. So we might see a decrease on lottery revenue. The money comes from the state. We still don't have an amount, but as you know, due to COVID-19, people overall is not buying lottery tickets. So we might see a reduction there. And like I said, we don't have an amount, but I'm gonna provide this as soon as we get it. We are seeing a decrease on facility leasing and rentals of about $10,000. We're also seeing a decrease in funding in the cafeteria fund for food services sales. These sales are usually the sales that they provide to the students. And as you know, also our director provides catering services. So that's gonna be another about $20,000. As we have some of our savings and some of the revenues are being decreased. As you know, we're also getting some help for this year for COVID-19. We're getting a state revenue. We got about $60,000. That money is going to be used to support the cafeteria fund for the extra hourly employees that are paying to pretty much keep feeding the kids from our school. And then we also have the FEMA grant. This is federal funding, and you're going to see a resolution on this meeting. And this is pretty much a reimbursement grant. So anything that we spend on protective equipment, cleaning supplies, and materials, we can apply for that grant and receive about 75% of our total expenses. So I'm working with that with school sites to make sure that we keep track of everything that we've been spending. We're also keeping copy of time cards or POs and making a list of what funds are being used for what purposes, so we can submit all that for reimbursement. So that's pretty much what's happening at the district level. And I know that everybody wants to know what's going to happen next year and what's going on with the economy, how is that going to affect our district
Really at this moment, nobody really knows how big of an impact this is gonna be. We all know that for sure there's gonna be reductions. I've been into several webinars, and based on the guidance that I've been getting from school services and CASCO, which is the top organizations that work very closely with the state government and the finance and the State Department of Finance, is pretty much advising the districts that that there's no information right now, but if we need to budget for next year, we really need to budget for zero COLA. So I am gonna give you 3 different scenarios that could happen. I'm not saying that this is gonna happen, but it could happen. I just wanna make sure that everyone is aware and that we have a plan prepared going forward. And like, again, this might change. Or next budget projection from the state is coming up in May. And even though we get these numbers in May for project for the next year, because I know that you're aware that income taxes got an extension through July 15, when it's usually due at April 15. So that it's kind of an issue for us, because that means that we're not gonna get all the funding maybe at the end of the year. So we might see some issues with our cash flow. I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit forward. But pretty much because we get 80% of our funding from income taxes, we're not gonna know how much exactly we're gonna get for next school year until the state gets all that revenue, and they're pretty much gonna have final numbers until probably September of this calendar year, but it's gonna be already on the next fiscal year. So there's pretty much 3 scenarios. The level 1, so this is the level 1 that they think it might happen, and nobody is really budgeting for this because they don't think this is really gonna happen. But just to mention out there, the first level is pretty much reducing the one-time funding that they're being given on the last prior years. As you know, this year we got about $400,000 on special ed. Last year we got some one-time funding to support Common Core, and we've been getting every year a little bit of one-time funding. And pretty much they're saying this is level 1. If it's not too big of an impact, they're just gonna stop reducing or stop giving the one-time funding. Also, one of the time fund money involves the employee summer assistant program that we've been getting in this last year, so that would go away. So that's level 1. Level 2, this is the guidance that we're getting, that this is pretty much what is more likely to happen. Like I said, this is not final, but this is just the guidance that we're getting, and this information might change at any time. So the level 2 involves a 0% COLA. In the January budget projection, they told us we're gonna get a 2.29. And for a district our size, a 2.29 COLA, it also depends on the ADA that we get next year, but it can go from $800,000 to $1 million in reduction in funding through the LCFF. So this is pretty much what, if we need to budget or we need to do a projection, this is the guidance that we're getting. This is more likely what's gonna happen. This happened on the last recession when districts got 0 COLA, so they are anticipating that it's very possible that they do that. Now, if COLA is less than 2%, then Ed Code 449 5.5 will kick in, and this is pretty much that it's a provision that allows summer layoffs for certificated employees. And this is pretty much allowing the district, as you know, usually the deadline to provide layoffs for the next fiscal year is the first notice in March and then in May. Well, with this Ed Code, so we really need to be careful on what we're gonna get from the state. If it's less than 2%, then this Ed Code will come into effect, which pretty much it's allowing the district to do summer layoffs all the way through August 15. And that's the level 2 or the second scenario. The third scenario will be pretty much the worst scenario. It's reducing all one-time funding, which anyway, we never really budget that. I don't have that budgeted on my 2 years out because it's never secure. It's only if it happens. So they'll reduce that. They'll give us zero COLA. And on top of that, they will reduce the amount per student. And I know that some administrators call it the negative COLA. This is pretty much reducing the amount per student. So whether we get about $8,000 per student, they might reduce a 20% less. It's gonna be a percentage. We don't know what percentage it's gonna be, but that's pretty much the level 3, which no COLA, and they're also taking a reduction on the amount per student. And like I said, all this information is gonna change. So even when we get it, this next year is gonna be very challenging because even though when we get to the May, by Ed Code, they have to provide us a budget projection by May 14. So even though we get that projection on May 14, they can come back in September after they receive all the money from their income taxes and say, hey, I said I was gonna give you this, but never mind, we're short, we're gonna make additional cuts, or vice versa. They might say, hey, you know, we told you you're gonna get this, but at the end, you're gonna get a little bit more. We don't know how that's gonna play out, but we know that on the last recession, they did that. They changed revenue in the middle of the school year. So that might happen again. And since there was the extension due date for the income taxes, I can see that happening. Going forward, they are advising everyone to be prepared and to be ready for something that they call a workload budget. This is pretty much being very aware of our cash management. Right now, our district reserves are at 27%. In the statewide, the average reserves that every district has is about 17%. So we are doing good in our reserves. We are in a good place. This comes in a very, very important scenario right now, especially if we don't get the cash with enough time to be able to still process payroll. What we can do with our reserves, with that 20% reserves that we have, we can still go 5 months, still processing payroll even though they delay our cash apportionments. So in case this happens when we don't get the money on time, which it's most likely gonna happen this year, we do have enough reserves and cash in there to keep payroll for 5 months. So this is when it comes very important, those reserves. The required reserves is 3%. That's about $1.2 million. That's not even enough for 1 month of payroll. 1 month of payroll for our districts is about $2 million. So having that reserve, it comes in a very, very important at this time of time, because especially we don't know when we're gonna get the cash to keep processing payroll. That's pretty much what I have. I'm also gonna be talking more about ADA projections. As you know, on my last budget report, I was projecting flux enrollment, but now with everything that's going on, having a hard time getting a hold of, students and families moving out of town because if they got laid off, they can't afford to live in this area. They might be moving back. Some families I know are moving back to Mexico. So we don't know exactly how many students are gonna come back. We might see a reduction on ADA on the next year again. And this is gonna be an impact for our finances as well. So I'll provide more information as we go. That's pretty much what I have. We're also gonna see increases again on the CalSTRS and CalSPERS contributions, because as you know, they invest money, and because they lost money due to the investments due to COVID-19, they need to make up for that money that they lost. So to come up with that money, they pretty much increase the rate for the district. So we're gonna see that more going forward. And sorry, I took too long. Thank you. I hope you find that information helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Tim, I do have a comment. Rosa, I want to commend you for publicly stating out to our community what our situation is regarding funding and what we're trying to do to alleviate it. I'm glad that we're bringing that to the forefront and letting the public know. I think the more information we get out there, the better. But at the same time, I think our district is going to be able to weather it as best as we can, hopefully better than other districts. But I do have a challenge for you, and that is this. As the months go on, as the year ends and the year starts, the numbers you're going to be presenting to us are going to be critical. Those are the numbers we're going to be using to make major decisions that will impact the entire district. So, I love the idea of you making your projections, best case, worst case scenarios, but whatever data points you include in that, try to be as accurate as possible. And we're trusting on your expertise in accounting and in a projection. So, like I said, challenges out there to make sure that our projections come in where they should be. So please, do what you do. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that, thank you, Neil. And Rosa knows this, and I think she hit on it in her report. Really, the biggest report you guys are going to want to see next year is cash flow. Because when you go into these recessions, cash is king. And as Rosa said, our reserves are at such a level that we can maintain for 5 months. And the last time, at the very worst, I think the longest we went through a deferral was, I think it was like 2.5 months. So we can go twice that long. So I think the main thing we want to do in Rosa next year, we want to make sure that we do a cash flow report each month to the board. Just so they can see, because that's really what we have to watch now. The expenditures and revenues are going to be kind of, iffy, because we don't know what the revenues are going to be, and we don't know what the expenditures are going to be until we get back and decide whether or not we're going to be in school full time. So, the main thing is every month just letting you see where our cash reserves are, that we have our money for payroll, and that we can make that. And so I think that we'll make sure that we will, and we're going to make sure that the unions are aware every step of the way, and we have, there's no surprises. So, Rosa, thank you very much. Good job, and you didn't go too long this time. You're doing great. So,
This is Sarah. I just wanted to interrupt for a minute to let you guys know that Jacob Sandoval had to leave the meeting. He's going to try to rejoin us, but if we end up taking a vote later and there's only 4 people present, that's why.
Okay, I have a quick question for Rosa.
Yeah.
Did you say we had a 20 or a 27% reserve?
27% reserved. What the average in California is 17%. So we have 10 more than the rest of the districts, usually on average. And like I said, the different scenarios that I just mentioned is just estimated scenarios. That doesn't mean that it's gonna happen, but I just want to make sure that everyone is aware. So I think in regards to the cash flow, we'll be okay this year. The problem is gonna be going forward for next year. When are we gonna get this cash, and are we gonna have enough to pay? So yes, we do. I am gonna be working very close on cash flow reports. So you're gonna be seeing a lot of that coming forward. And if for some reason, some of the other funds, like for example, the cafeteria fund or the child development fund, which more likely is gonna happen, they're gonna be running out of funds. You're gonna see a upcoming resolution where we can use the reserves from Fund 1 to do like an inter-fund borrowing. So that way we can have enough reserves on those funds to cover payroll. So that's probably what's gonna happen on the next fiscal year.
Thank you, Rosa.
thank you, Rosa. Nadine Dermody.
Yeah, at the moment, I have nothing different to report from what was communicated in the Friday letter. I'm attending every board meeting. I know we were on rotations, but I feel it's important to be available as much as possible to board members for any information you would like, need, or any questions you may have. But at this time, our department, Student Services and SPED, is running very, very well and running like a top. So I'm very pleased, and I have nothing different to report from what I did a couple days ago. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them if you have any. Thank you.
Nadine, a question I know that the board was pondering was summer school. Could you just go over your ESY?
You mean Unreal? yes, my old ESY plan or what I think might
Well,
happen?
what do you think you're gonna be able to do?
Here's what I can tell you. I'm not making any solid decisions. I need to see what happens when the tentative date for the supposed lifting of shelter in place happens on May 4th, and then we'll talk. I think I need to see, it's a little too soon to get some type of idea, but most likely it's gonna be a distance learning model. I don't see how we're gonna have kids in a campus situation in June. And I don't see parents wanting to send their kids to a campus situation in June when there is no national plan, no state plan, and how we're gonna protect kids in a school setting. So most likely it will be a distance model. I can't say for sure, but we will, the state requirement for extended school year is 80 hours. It's not a number of days. It's not a start time and end time. It's in hours. So we will do our distance learning model to meet those state requirements and provide related services to students and families who are in need. So typically what we do is in the first week of May is when we start reaching out to families we pull a report from Cyrus who's eligible for ESY, and then we start reaching out to families and try to get some type of idea of number of who would like it to attend. Historically in the past, our ESY has never exceeded more than 12 students. We might have 25 families say, yes, we're gonna bring our kids, and then half of them don't show. And I think by the time summer rolls around, in all honesty, from an educator point, in a point of view and a parent point of view, parents are done. They're tired of teaching their kids. They're gonna want some summertime, and they're not gonna wanna sit around the computers anymore. Will we offer ESY? Yes. Will we do it? Yeah, we'll do it for one student, or we'll do it for 50. So whatever's there. I do have teachers who have already volunteered, or not volunteered, but have expressed interest in teaching ESY. So we will roll it in some way, shape, or form. And I will continue, like I've done the last couple of years, to work with Melissa if and when we decide to do a summer academy, what that looks like and how to do it. And we will do the best we can to run them in conjunction and concurrently with each other as we did last year. Anything else? Okay.
No, that's it. Okay, Becky, you want to go ahead?
Thank you. Like Nadine, a very short report from me today. We with CSEA that we are extending just because when we wrote that, we wrote it for 30 days, not anticipating we would be going this long through the pandemic. So we're just extending the exact same agreement to get us through June 30th, or when this ends, should that be sooner. We have been conducting virtual interviews, but are having to pause on doing any clearances and moving forward with the actual hiring at this point as we wait to see when we can put people in contact with each other to do fingerprints, and also just confirming that we are able to fill every vacancy that we currently have once we get more information regarding the budget. And other than that, we're just keeping up with the ongoing leave regulations. It's related to COVID-19 that would impact anything that we're doing in human resources right now. So just trying to keep things moving along as things continue to change, and trying to be prepared for whatever is going to come our way. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Melissa.
Well, I know I talked to you guys in closed session about how Becky and I have been working on our multi-tiered plan of attack for if we have an economic downturn, and making sure that we trim all the fat that we can before we would ever move into needing to go through any kind of layoff of our staff, and looking at other areas where we could cut or move around current staffing to make things work as we weather this storm on whatever level it hits us. So I think that's really important that all of our teachers and our staff know that that's not our first plan of attack as the economy begins to become more apparent to us, and the impact it's going to have. And just wanted to go ahead and put that out there. And Becky and I will continue to work with Tim on this as we give him our input and our suggestions for what a projection might look like as we move forward with staffing and things like that. And we'll share those with you. as well as with our certificated and classified unions as we move forward. I know Mr. Patel mentioned how important it is that we're all in this together, and Becky and I, it's very important for us that our union leadership understand that, and that we do a lot of our work to make sure that we're all in this together. Santa Rita's always been a family, and so we try to maintain that as we do this, and to work out this issue for our staff as best we can at this really, really uncertain time. The commendable effort that our teachers are making with this distance learning, providing online services as well as the paper services for those students who can't or don't have internet activity has been amazing. And all of our schools have been posting online versions of those materials so that parents can print them out or pick up paper packets if they're not able to access internet. We've been making individual calls to families who indicated that they needed internet service. Jennifer Nunez, my administrative assistant, has been calling families individually to walk them through the process of securing either Comcast or AT&T. Those are our service providers here, making sure that they have the letter from the district participating in the National School Lunch Program and those things that they might need. And walking them through the instructions in case that process was a little confusing. And so she's been calling each individually and keeping track of that so that we can keep narrowing that down. We do have a few families who live out near Old Stage Road where the internet just simply doesn't service. None of our local providers provide access out there. So we're working on trying to secure some hotspots, but those aren't hard to come by these days. And so our teachers and our classified staff have been doing a tremendous effort getting our families the food and the materials that they need on a daily basis. And I will let you know as we continue to make plans on getting those personal items from students desk to them, what we're doing for our 8th grade promotion ceremonies. I know our middle school principals have been working on that. So we'll share those plans with you as we go to keep you aware.
Thank you.
Melissa, I have a question really quick. How are we doing the reconfigurations of students for next year?
So you mean like our pinks and blues and things like that and getting our classes?
Yeah.
So we're going ahead and we're running those now. We have a little bit of time on our hands. So we're going ahead running those, rolling up what our current class sizes would be, fitting in those inter-district transfers that we know we've already accepted in. Principals are going to get digital copies of their pinks and blues. And so we can put them on the correct background for them without having to run them in paper copies. And we're going to try to do this as virtually as we possibly can. It's going to be a new endeavor for us, but it's just really helpful to be able to lay hands on that. Worst case scenario, our principals could go in with the reams of paper and print out their pinks and blues as necessary, and then give staff, minimize how many staff are in there touching them at a given time, handing them directly to teachers. So we're going to try to minimize any risk involved in that shuffling of paper that we normally do, but still go ahead and work on building those classes because we need to. So that was one thing we talked about in our principals meeting yesterday. Is turns out we have to plan for next school year too, not just what we're doing right now, and sort of taking a new path on how to get those sorts of things done. That normally that's a mundane task for us, where we're like, oh yeah, it's time to run the pinks and blues. And so we're still moving forward with that, Elva, but we're going to try to do it online if possible, and then worst case scenario, we have the paper on hand to go ahead and we can give it to sites to run those when it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tim, is that all the staff reports?
That's it for the cabinet,
Okay, I'm going to go on to 3.3, reports from the board. If after I say your name, if you can report, or if you just have nothing to report, that's fine. Mr. Patel?
Just a couple words. I just want to commend staff, especially certificated and classified, that are out there in the elementary schools, handing out packets, handing out food, going out personally to the food bank to get food for our district, our community. You know, very, very commendable. I just couldn't be prouder. You know, I've been out to Santa Rita, been out to New Republic, you know, as well as BK. So it's just been a phenomenal job from what I'm seeing. And by any measure, you know, it's just it's very much a success during these uncertain times. The other thing I just want to make a quick comment, and that is, you know, considering the projections that are coming out, lack of revenue for state budgets, lack of revenue, you know, or lowering the revenue for schools all across the nation, but especially California and our district, I feel very proud of each and every department that we have in our district. During these uncertain times, they're going through things that they never imagined, and with forces out there that, you know, unpredictable. And so I just want to commend each and every department. I'm hearing things every day about what sets apart Santa Rita from other school districts, and the fact that we have a great leadership team, a great staff, and a great community working together. So, you know, I'm glad I'm weathering the storm with the people I know and the people we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hargi Saldana?
I want to just echo what Mr. Patel has said. I really want to commend everybody for all the amazing work that's being done. Otherwise, nothing to report.
Thank you. Ms. Arellano?
I have nothing to report tonight, but just thank you to everybody that's been doing a great job.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval, are you back with us? Okay, this is Ms. Turner, and I just, again, want to thank everybody, and just to report out, I did talk to Mr. Jacob Sandoval and Tim this week and last week in regards to the census. So thank you to all of the workers and helpers who did amazing stuff getting information out there. And I also want to thank you guys for putting on the meeting without me 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, I was ill, and I really appreciated your flexibility. So I'm going to go on to superintendent report.
Thank you. I just want to take a minute. I just have a time. I'm absolutely shut in now. I'm quarantined under a doctor's order. I've turned that all over to Becky. I have some type of lung condition, possibly due to a mold issue in my office. And so even under normal circumstances, I would be stuck at home, but given the COVID-19 issue with my lungs the way they are, I'm stuck. And so the amount of communication and the amount of support I've gotten from everybody, from classified staff up through the ranks, all the way through the principals, and especially the executive cabinet, has been, I don't know that there's another cabinet that I've never heard of another superintendent talk about their cabinet this way, but I'll just tell you that each one of them are leaders par excellence. I mean, they're just simply, they've stepped up and are doing this job with very little, if any, input by me, other than just the vision that we set at the beginning of the year. Proud is not even a word that comes close to expressing the amount of gratitude I have for all of them. So I want to talk a little bit about, what we're doing through this and how we're working through it. And Rosa touched on it, and so did Melissa. We're preparing for 3 different levels of this disaster. And the worst case scenario, as Rosa stated, was a negative COLA, under Journeyman's language, not under her language, but a negative COLA. So we're looking at a potential cut in our ADA that could lead to some severe cuts to our revenue. And in addition to that, we're going to have the potential for deferrals and deferments and cash flow, where we have to be able to pay payroll without any income coming in. And we're in such a great position because of decisions that have been made at these board meetings and at this table for since I've been here 3.5 years. There have been times when that's not always been looked upon favorably, but you all made decisions under my strong, advice that we maintain our reserves at the levels they're at. So now we're able to weather this storm, and we don't have to go out and hurt families worse than they are because we didn't prepare for this stormy weather that we're in. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to the cabinet. It's an amazing, this thing brings out the best and worst in people. And, you watch the evening noise and you see the worst in people, and then you plug into this thing and you see the best in people. So thank you for that. And I just, before we get off of this, I just need to remind Sarah, we need to go back and do our consent agenda, because we kind of dropped that when we switched back and picked up the first part of the meeting. So if we could go back and do that consent agenda. I know Becky has something she needs to talk about on that. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay. If we could discuss whatever it is that is an issue on the consent agenda and then move on from there.
Thank you. And I apologize for this. Somehow this slipped by me, and our new hire that is listed, I would like to retract from this agenda and postpone until a further date, because we're still pending clearances. I think Lori, she missed that, and so I just wanted to make sure that I let you know that. The other thing that I wanted to correct is under resignations, Luzalena Romero Guzman is retiring, and I generally list the retirees separately, and I want to honor her for her service and make sure that we do categorize that as a retirement, not just a resignation. So thank you, and I do apologize. I'll make sure that does not happen again.
Okay. So I'm going back to consider approval of the consent agenda 2.0. So just with the understanding that we're tabling the new hire until the next meeting, because the clearance is not going through right now because of the shutdown, and also recognizing that employee as a retiree rather than resignation. With those two amendments, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to as amended.
I, Amparo, second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I get it.
Okay, so I believe that passed 4-0, that Jacob is not yet with us. Okay. Going down to public comment, I know I read in earlier the letter from SRTA. Does anybody else have any information that they've received for public comment at this time? Okay. I'm going to go forward into 4.1, consider approval of resolution form 130, a federal requirement to receive FEMA funds.
Yes, so that's pretty much a resolution. It is a requirement to receive federal funding. This is the reimbursement grant that I was talking about. It covers 75% of our expenses due to COVID-19, like protective equipment, also in supplies or any other supplies that we purchase to be ready for this. So as one of the requirements to apply for the funding is to have a resolution authorizing someone at the district to do the application and also to submit all the paperwork, which includes, like copy of the timesheets, copy of the POs, and all the backup documentation.
Any questions or comments?
No.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Okay, could we go on to 4.2, consider approval of resolution for school construction projects under Monterey County Shelter-in-Place Order?
Motion to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't find the button. It was hidden for some reason. But anyways, so this resolution actually lets us continue to perform construction for essential items such as, for example, the mold that we have to remediate and fix at the district office. We have other roofs that have been leaking, and so during the shelter in place, it just lets us continue doing construction during these times.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, do I have a second?
Second.
And just, Jacob has returned to the meeting, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, Captain.
Aye, so that passes 5-0. Earlier, when we adopted the agenda, 4.3 and 4.4 were tabled to another meeting so we're going to move on to 5.1, consider approval of the extension of the Memorandum of Understanding MOU between the Santa Rita Union School District and CSEA Chapter 503 regarding coronavirus COVID-19 response.
As I mentioned earlier, this is simply an extension of the agreement that we had already approved, just making sure that it gets us through June 30th or to the end of this pandemic, whichever comes first. So no changes in working conditions at this time for our classified employees.
Can I have a motion?
Mr. Patel, motion to approve.
Some of this,
I second to approve. Amparo?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0. So we're going to move down to 10.0, future meeting agenda items and adjournment. Is there any board requests for future items they would like agendized?
I would love to see, if possible, how the teachers are interacting with the students, in terms of, online learning, how they're making that connection. Maybe just one or two teachers might want to share, maybe a video or something, I just want to see how it's going out there on a local level, if possible.
Thank you. Any other requests?
No requests here, but I do have a question. I believe I missed filling out a form for April 1st.
Form 700, same here.
Yes, and so is Juanita coming into work at all district, or is she working at home?
She's coming in the afternoons, and I was under the impression that she had those filed, but I'll check with her. Do you have something, Melissa?
Yeah, the Form 700 has been delayed till June.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so whenever she has a chance, Juanita, if she can send me what I filled out so it can, kind of copy what I did last year. And if she could just steer me into the right direction on how to get that form. And that way I can fill it out at home and then I can mail it to the district.
I'll have her call each of you. Because I worked with Sarah on this a little bit ago. So I'll have her reach out to each of you just so she can connect with you on that to see where you're at.
Great, thank you so much.
Sure, no worries.
Yeah, they didn't waive the requirement, the April 1st requirement until March 27th. So most people didn't get information that it had been waived. I sent my form off just because I didn't have information that they were going to waive it at that time. But Juanita just asked me to keep a copy for the district records. But Melissa's correct that they did waive the requirement until June. It was fine if you turned in early, but if you didn't, there's not a problem right at the moment.
Great. I my name.
Yeah.
I sent my form in and I kept a copy for the district.
Okay, guys, unless there's something else, I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
Just real quick, Sarah, just real quick. I just got a text from Juanita, who is watching from home, apparently.
Yep.
She said they are done and I will be sending out next week. They are due in June, Form 700, so she's on it.
Great.
Thank you.
Before she's there, she's at the DO, so.
Till I need help too. But before we go, I just want to say I miss each and every one of you. I can appreciate distant communication, but it's not the same. To actually be there in person, see you guys smile. I just really, really miss my compadres, and especially Santa Rita. So anyway, with that, motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. I miss you guys too. Hopefully better days are coming.
See you next board meeting.
Good night, everybody. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.